Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Before Coffee. It's Wacky and Weird Wednesday, and boy do we have some wacky and weird news for you today, including somebody getting taken off the ballot. Let's go ahead and cover our headlines and then get into our news stories. Alright, today on Before Coffee. NASA transmits cat named Tatters steals the show in the first video sent by laser from deep space.
And the Colorado Supreme Court says, no thank you. We prefer that our presidents are not revolutionaries.
EU strikes major deal to reform migration policy after 3 years of bitter debates.
And in wacky news about Jeffrey Epstein, over 150 names of his associates are released by a judge. And we have some charity that is not necessarily on the up and up.
And Paris opera ballerinas go on strike over the Christmas period, and a French couple aren't owed any money in African mass case worth millions. Court rules.
Those stories and more, which is National Sangria Day, December 20th, 2023 on Before Coffee.
Okay, first news story is going to be a short one about a cat. That's right. The first video to ever be transmitted via laser is a cat chasing a laser. This is by Marcia Dune. Oh, I forgot to start the correct audio. Okay. This is by Marcia Dune. Cape Canaveral, Florida, AP. An orange tabby cat named Tatters stars in the first video transmitted by laser from deep space. The 15-second video beamed to Earth from NASA's Psyche spacecraft 19 million miles away. It took less than 2 minutes for the ultra-high-definition video to reach Caltech Palomar Observatory, sent at a test system's maximum rate of 267 megabits per second. I think you would know what that means more than me. The video was loaded into Psyche's laser communication experiment before the spacecraft blasted off to a rare metal asteroid in October. The missions team at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California, decided to feature an employee's 3-year-old playful kitten. The video was streamed to Earth on December 11th and released by NASA this week. Despite the vast distance, the test relayed the video faster than most broadband internet connections here on Earth, said the project's Brian Rogalin. NASA wants to improve communication from deep space, especially as astronauts gear up to return to the moon with an eye towards Mars. The laser demo is meant to transmit data at rates up to 100 times greater than the radio systems currently used by spacecraft far from Earth. More test transmissions are planned as Psyche heads towards the main asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. But Tatters won't be making any more appearances, according to JPL. Joppy Harris, an art director in JPL's design lab, couldn't be prouder, but doesn't want his cat's newfound celebrity to go to his head. I'm celebrating his spotlight with him, but making sure he keeps his paws on the carpet, Harris said in an email on Tuesday. So there's your short little, I want to play the video as well. So let me put this on the screen. It's just a very short 15-second video of a cat playing with the laser. For those who can't see video, if I can see video. But it's something that also people in space can see. Maybe somebody even interrupted the message. So here's the video here. Let me start it over.
We now have our space lasers that we're all supposed to be afraid of.
It's really weird because they also put like a bunch of data. Also with the cat overlay.
Oh yeah, so you can send a lot for sure. It's a radio wave.
So there you go. That's your wacky news about, hey, let's send a cat into space. And go ahead and your story.
Okay, well, in big political news, it's not every day when a former president gets thrown off the ballot. But that's what happened in Colorado. This is Associated Press, Nicholas Riccardi, which was dominant news story in the United States today. So we're going to cover it. A divided Colorado Supreme Court on Tuesday declared former President defendant J. Trump ineligible for the White House under the U.S. Constitution's insurrection clause and removed him from the state's presidential primary ballot, setting up a likely showdown in the nation's highest court to decide whether the frontrunner or GOP nomination can remain in the race. The decision from a court whose justices were all appointed by Democratic government, as if that makes a difference, but it marks the first time in history that Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which, we'll just read that sucker, let's just clear this up. The majority of the court holds that Trump is disqualified from the holy office of the president under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, the court wrote in a 4-3 decision. Colorado's highest court overturned a ruling from a district court who found that Trump incited an insurrection for his role in January 6, 2021 attack on the Capitol, but said he could not be barred from the ballot because it was unclear that the provision was intended to cover the presidency. Okay. We're going to stop right there. What the hell are you even talking about? Why would it cover every other office and not the president? That makes absolutely no sense. 0 sense. It says all officers who took an oath. That includes the president. I don't know how clear it could be. All officers who took an oath. It doesn't say except the president anywhere in it. It doesn't make any exceptions. Why are they making exceptions? Oh, well, it doesn't specifically say the dog catcher. Well, no, it's just, come on now. So the judges who say he did not, they say he did perform an insurrection, but they say, well, the 14th Amendment doesn't really say president. Come on, man. 7-0, they're saying he committed the act an insurrection. 7-0. The only things they're disagreeing on is saying it wasn't disallowed from any office. The president is excluded from this, which is absurd. It's an absurd notion. So again, I could cover the story, but the press is going to cover it to death. But to me, this has already been decided by the 14th Amendment. He's disqualified, period. If he wants to get back on the ballot, he's going to get 3/4 of the United States Congress to vote him back on the ballot. That's the rules. And every state should follow this. The Supreme Court will probably throw it out because Clarence Thomas is on there. And he's owned by, the people that want to keep Trump in office. And, of course, his wife took part in the insurrection. So he should be recusing himself. But we know he won't because he's a criminal. So our Supreme Court is about to decide, because this is going directly to the Supreme Court. They're going to decide by January 4th, I believe it's a deadline. Ironically, I think it's the 5th, actually. Ironically. Because January 6th is when the insurrection took place. But the Supreme Court, if they decide that this ruling doesn't matter, then they don't matter. Because what's going to happen? Trump's going to go on all the ballots, and he's going to ignore the Supreme Court every time they say something, and he's going to be a dictator. And they're going to sit there and go, we decided this, and Trump's going to say, so fucking what? That's what they want? That's what they're going to get. They're going to decide themselves right out of existence by just giving a dictator all the power. That's what they want. That's what they're going to get. So we got that showdown coming in a few weeks. It isn't going to decide everything because this is basically just keeping them off the primary ballot. There'll be plenty of challenges way ahead in many other states about keeping him off the general election ballot in case he wins the Republican nomination, which those clowns, those seem like they know what the hell they're doing on any subject. So, back to you.
Yeah, it's really, almost feels helpless to do anything except for to vote. Because that's the only thing we're really given the power to do, other than, I don't know.
Well, they expect it to be overturned by the Supreme Court simply because there are a bunch of for sale signs on all them guys. Well, at least 5 of them, maybe 6. But they expect it to be overturned. But this is only for the primary. The states that have already decided he can be on the primary ballot are like Wisconsin and, swing states already said, yeah, he can be on the primary ballot, but come back to us on the general election, right? Mm-hmm. So this ain't over, and it still won't be over in January. But at least Trump is getting another nail. Even if it takes 1 million nails in that coffin, let's go. One at a time.
Okay. In my political news, supposedly the EU has agreed on migrant reforms, but who knows if they're actually gonna be good for anybody but the people already in power. This is from Jorge Libiero from Euronews. Member states and the European Parliament struck on Wednesday a major deal to reform the bloc's migration policy, capping off a 3-year-long ambitious effort that at times seemed doomed to fail. The agreement, which is preliminary and still needs to undergo formal ratification, was sealed after the marathon talks that began on Monday afternoon, continued throughout Tuesday and concluded on Wednesday morning, an intensity that reflects the high stakes on the table. Yeah, like people's lives. Negotiation focused on a vast and complex array of open questions that required compromises on both sides, such as detention periods, racial profiling, which is definitely happening, unaccompanied minors, search and rescue operations, and border surveillance. The Council, led by the Spanish presidency, defended a rigid position to give member states the widest margin of maneuver to handle migration, including by extending a proposed fast-tracked asylum procedure to as many claimants as possible, while the Parliament insisted on stricter provisions to respect fundamental rights. Yes, I like that, respecting people's fundamental rights part. The European Commission all took part, providing assistance and guidance. With the winter break looming even closer, the co-legislators were under increasing pressure to patch up the differences, which in some cases were profound, and achieve the eagerly anticipated breakthrough. The laws, known as the New Pact on Migration and Asylum, were first unveiled in September 2020 in an attempt to turn the page on decades of ad hoc crisis management, which saw governments take unilateral and uncoordinated measures to cope with the steep rise in asylum seekers. Maybe we should look at why they're trying to get asylum too. But, you know, that would probably reveal some things they don't want to talk about. At its core, the new pact is meant to establish predictable, clear-cut norms that bind all member states regardless of their geographic location and economic weight. The ultimate goal is to find a balance between the responsibility of frontline nations like Italy, Greece, and Spain, which received the bulk of asylum seekers, and the principle of solidarity that other countries should uphold. Because let's be honest, as soon as they get into the EU, they can go wherever they want. They don't have to stay in Greece, Spain, or Italy, especially since it seems like those places don't like them anyways. Great news! We did it! We have an agreement on the whole pact on migration and asylum. We have been negotiating in trilogues for 2 days and 2 nights, said Ylva Johannesson, the European Commissioner for Home Affairs, celebrating the news. Wednesday's preliminary deal will now be translated into amended legal text, which will have to be first approved by the Parliament and later by the Council. Given the extreme sensitivity of the issues at hand, last-minute demands from governments should not be ruled out. Nevertheless, the approval in the Council will be done by qualified majority vote, meaning individual countries will not be able to veto. The cycle must conclude before Brussels comes to a total standstill ahead of the next elections in the European Parliament scheduled in early June. Here are the 5 laws in the one pact. The screening regulation, which envisions a pre-entry procedure to swiftly examine an asylum seeker's profile and collect basic information such as nationality, age, fingerprints, and facial image. Health and security checks will also be carried out here. The amended Eurodac regulation, which updates the Eurodac large-scale database that will store biometric evidence collected during the screening process. The database will shift from counting applications to counting applicants to prevent multiple claims under the same name. The amended Asylum Procedures Regulation, APR, which sets 2 possible proceedings for asylum seekers: a fast-tracked border procedure for migrants that comes from the countries with low recognition rates, meant to last a maximum of 12 weeks, and the traditional asylum procedure, which will take several months. The Asylum and Migration Management Regulation, AMMR, which establishes a system of mandatory solidarity that will be triggered when one or more member states come under migratory pressure. The system will offer countries 3 options to help out: relocate a certain number of asylum seekers, pay a contribution for each claimant that refuses to relocate, and finance operational support. So you're helping whether you want to or not. The crisis regulation, which foresees exceptional rules that will apply when the bloc's asylum system is threatened by a sudden and massive arrival of refugees, as was the case during the migration crisis in 2015-2016, or by situations like the COVID pandemic. In these circumstances, national authorities will be allowed to apply tougher measures, including longer detention periods. And then, of course, because of that, I'm sure they will have to argue about, is this a reason to have a tougher measure on periods? And then there'll be more arguments and negotiations until, you know, they'll just close all the borders and nobody will be allowed to enter. The negotiations between the Council and Parliament have been made out for several months, first in separate talks on each file, and most recently in the so-called jumbo format, where the 5 draft laws were considered all at once under the mantra, nothing is agreed until everything is agreed. Member states were bent on preserving the hard-fought compromise they had struck among themselves after years of fruitless and bitter debates to reform the bloc's migration policy. The compromise was particularly delicate on the system of mandatory solidarity, envisioned under the AMMR. Countries had to agree on an annual quota of 30,000 relocations and 20,000 euros contribution for each asylum seeker they reject. So if you reject somebody, you gotta cash out your money. But lawmakers resented the Council's unyielding position and urged flexibility to meet halfway. Some of the last remaining differences was the scope of a 12-week border procedure, the detention of irregular applicants, and a mechanism to monitor fundamental rights, and the concept of third safe countries. Poland and the Baltic states pushed for special rules to cope with instrumentalization of migrants, a phenomenon which themselves suffered firsthand in 2021 when Belarus orchestrated an influx of asylum seekers in retaliation for international sanctions. Meanwhile, as talks gathered pace, humanitarian organizations stepped up their public campaign to warn the new pact's risk in normalizing arbitrary detention and sending migrants back to countries where they face violence and prosecution. We are acutely aware that politics is often about compromise, but there are exceptions, and human rights cannot be compromised. I agree with this. When they are weakened, there are consequences for all of us. More than 50 NGOs said in an open letter this week. And this is indeed a truth here. Just because right now they don't like people from Sudan doesn't mean they're not going to like people from somewhere else. Especially when it looks like a lot of European countries are starting to get more anti-immigrant and more let's pretend that we're better than anybody who comes in with a degree. Let's not support anybody from the world from being educated. Let's just keep us, Central Europe, East and Northern Europe, let's keep us educated and not let anybody come here to get educated and work for us because we don't want workers, we just want slaves, I guess. Anyways, enough of my...
That's a long paraphrase.
No, that's my editorial. Enough of my editorializing. Oh. We'll see what happens with this because as it always is, you can pass a law, but it takes 10 years for that law to actually show its effects. So who knows what this will do in the future. But we have to just watch and see, and hopefully no more people have to suffer because, I don't know, Italy or Spain or Greece doesn't want people coming in because reasons that I cannot extrapolate here. Your story.
Hey, well, and here's somebody who imported lots of foreign workers, Jeffrey Epstein. Not the kind of work you wouldn't want to do, but this is from AP's story, no byline. Judge orders release of over 150 names of people mentioned in Jeffrey Epstein lawsuit documents. A federal judge has ordered public disclosure of identities of more than 150 people mentioned in the mountain of court documents related to the late financier Jeffrey Epstein, saying that most of the names are already public and that many had not objected to that release. The people whose names are to be disclosed, including sex abuse victims, litigation witnesses, Epstein employees, and even some people with only a passing connection to the scandal, have until January 1st to appeal the order, signed Monday by Judge Loretta A. Preska. For several years, Preska has reviewed documents sought by the Miami Herald from a civil case filed by one of Epstein's victims that eventually was settled. Many of the records related to the lawsuit were publicly released in past years, but on Monday, the judge made determinations about some portions of the records that were initially withheld on potential privacy grounds and what can be made public about certain people mentioned in the records. So there's probably nothing sensational. I mean, a lot of people have been dragged by this, so I guess I'll just be confirming what some people have to go, oh, good, we got some salacious news. So there's your salacious news of the day. And in our was going to be my feature story until Trump got booted off the ballot. There's a charity in the United States called Reefs Across America. And this is a story from the Military Times, which is a magazine you can get in like the military PXs, you know. So the people reading this are going to be going, oh, wow, they're scamming us. Oh, yes. When trucks from wreath across America, this is the reporter's name is Leo Shane III. When trucks from wreaths across America roll into Arlington National Cemetery on Thursday, they'll bring with them the largest army of volunteers and the most substantial supply of holiday wreaths in the charity's 15 years of operation. They're also poised to write the biggest check ever to their sole wreath supplier, a Maine company owned by the founders of the charity, whose main source of income is donations from the nonprofit. What a shock. Wreaths across America and the Worcester Wreath Company are open about their relationship, advertising for each other on their website. Both have filed appropriate disclosures and tax forms, but have received no pushback from the Internal Revenue Service or state officials. But as the operation has grown from regional volunteer effort to a nationwide campaign bringing in more than $30 million annually, more than double its 2017 total, so to have questions about whether its close ties between the nonprofit group and for-profit company undercut the charitable message of the effort. It doesn't seem like a charity at all to me, but let's go into this. Charity is actually benefiting somebody somewhere. This doesn't seem to be benefiting anyone. You often see a small charity where some of the insiders will work for the related company or the founders or get paid, said Brian Mittendorf, the H.P. Wolf Chair in Accounting at Ohio State's Fisher College of Business. The unusual part here is the scale, that an organization of this size would still have such a large proportion of its budget in the form of transactions with related persons raises questions. Well, it's called self-dealing. I mean, come on. You take money to provide wreaths to graves, dead people that'll never see them. And you take that money and you actually make the wreaths. So you're taking the money, you're putting it into your factory of wreaths, right? And you're extracting all of the wreaths, which are donated, theoretically, but you're making all the profit. The profit goes, I'm sure it goes into some kind of other things, but most of it just goes in their pockets. The idea of the wreaths across America grew from Decision Worcester Wreath and Moral Worcester, that's the name of the guy. Worcester Wreath owner, Moral Worcester, is really hard to say, in the 1990s to donate extra holiday wreaths to Arlington National Cemetery. As a tradition attracted more attention, the company split off the work into a charitable arm, still maintaining its ties with the founders. Over the years, the major donors such as American Airlines, Chevrolet, and Jersey Mike's Subs have handed over hundreds of thousands of dollars. In contrast, the early years of the operation, today, the two entities have flip roles, with the charity drawing national headlines and the private wreath firm relying mostly on their organization for revenue. If it's the case that the for-profit vendor would collapse or need to significantly downsize were it to lose the business of the charity, it is a glaring conflict of interest that owners of the vendor of the charity's board or in key staff positions, said Lori Styron, CEO and Executive Director of Charity Watch, an independent charity watchdog group. The owners and their close relatives should either sell off their financial interests in the for-profit vendor, or the interested parties should resign from the charity and allow independent board to recruit leaders in whom the public can have confidence in the capacity to act independently. The charity's goals and operations are straightforward. The group has stated a mission is to remember the men and women who served our country, honor our military families, and teach our children about freedom and those who protect it. Charity officials say they try to advance these goals through a series of education events throughout the year, but the wreath distribution every December is the highest profile initiative. Nearly 3 million volunteers. These are people not getting money. Volunteers are expected to take part in wreath laying activities this weekend as these people sit in Maine and count up their money. Oh yeah, we're raking it in. And all these people working for nothing. Woohoo! The arrival of wreaths in Arlington National Cemetery this week is a multi-day media event with lengthy rules for an expected rush of news crews. Photojournalists documenting the thousands of volunteers at wreaths. Individuals and groups who participate in Wreaths Across America events each December receive all their wreaths through the charity. Donors pay $17 for each one, $5 going back to civic and youth groups helping with the sales. WAA officials say the arrangement has raised $22 million over the last 15 years for local charities and civic groups. Yeah, whatever. When I hear local charities, I hear the word charity, I think scam. automatically, almost 100%. Scam, 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 scam. If you say it's going to local charities, whatever. Where are the receipts? Let's see the receipts. In fiscal 2021, the charity sent nearly $21.5 million to Worcester Reef. Company officials have said publicly that the Reefs Across America contract makes more than 75% of their annual revenue. In other words, they'd be out of business without this kickback from their own charity. Worcester Reef officials said they donate 30% of their profits to the charity and other local veterans groups. Again, here we are, we're saying things, and we can say I'm going to this charity, but you're always saying you're a charity. So what does that even mean? This year, the charity expects to place nearly $3 million in wreaths on grave sites, more than 4,200 locations nationwide, all bought from the main supplier. Of course, the dead people did not ask for these wreaths. Their families didn't ask for them. They're just doing it. I mean, board members Reefs Across America, including Karen Worcester, the executive director, are related to the owners of Worcester Reef. Charity officials and tax filing sales members recused themselves from discussion and vote of the agreement between organization and Worcester Reef. That's irrelevant because they are single sourcing all their wreaths from one company. This process in public and executed every 3 years is open to any wreath company to submit a bid nationwide until this point it has not been deemed necessary by the subcommittee and advisor to have more than one vendor meet the needs of the program. Hey, this is really simple. Stop self-dealing. Buy your wreaths from somewhere else and we'll leave you alone. That's the end of the story. I can't hear you.
That's the end of the story. I'm done. Reefs.
Well, I've been talking too long.
I've been talking about these reefs. I don't know, it's completely messed up. It doesn't make any sense and it's 100% a scam. It's like, really crazy.
Well, they're selling them to themselves.
Yeah.
They're making all the profits. All the profit in this entire operation is going to one company and they're getting 3 million people to work for nothing. Wow. I mean, hello. Fold up your wreath company or do something. Stop sitting there going.
What did you say?
Don't take
Similar
a leak.
to the Paris Opera ballerinas. Here we go, trying to get a segue.
Oh, I was going to say an old Lyndon Johnson bromide.
Yeah.
Don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining. Anyway, go ahead.
The Paris ballerinas are going on strike over the Christmas period, with what I think is probably something to do with the Nutcracker, or they want to be with their family on Christmas instead of in the opera on Christmas. This is from Jolly Wildfists on Euronews Culture. The dancers will put their feet down, followed by stagehands at the Paris Opera, whose walkout canceled 2 performances of the Nutcracker in early December. The stagehands went on strike early November, stopping performance of Turandot in Cinderella. The ballerinas go on strike for 3 days, the 23rd, 25th, and 31st of September, over stalled negotiation talks on intermittent worker rights. A dancer has preparation time, makeup, dressing, undressing. Currently, a dancer spends around 42 hours per month preparing. However, the package allocated for this preparation time is equivalent to only 6 hours. Matteo Boto, choreographer and dancer at Paris Opera, explains, "This is no longer consistent with the reality of the dancer. We are therefore asking for regularization of the package linked to this preparation time," Boto, also a union representative, says. In June, the Ballet Corps went on strike over the same issue, which was not satisfyingly resolved, says Boto. Our demand was not really followed by general management. They preferred to propose a reorganization of the Dancers' Day with more rehearsals, finishing one earlier in the day. But this was not all the desire for the ballet at its core, he told Radio France. The strike was agreed upon on 11th of December. Our goal is not to strike. We do not want to lose money either to the opera or to the employees, nor do we want the spectator to be unhappy, Boto says. We wanted a preventative consultation which did not take place, and unfortunately, at the opera, as it is in other structures, it always comes down to the balance of power. It is not the first time in recent years that the ballet dancers have gone on strike. 27 ballerinas took the steps of Palais Garnier instead of performing in the 2019 Christmas Eve show of Swan Lake. The protest was part of a month-long set of strikes that the Paris Opera participated in alongside many other sectors against France's President Emmanuel Macron's controversial pension reforms. Ah, yeah, I remember that when that happened earlier this year. That was this year when they were doing the pension reform protests. So it sounds like these ballerinas, I think what they mean by package, they mean when they're hired as ballerinas, they're given a certain amount of money for, you know, when they're in the show and practice and whatnot. But their actual time being spent preparing to do the show is way longer than how much they're actually paid for. So they're requiring that time that they're sitting in the chair, you know, getting their makeup done, doing their hair, putting on their costume, should all be on the clock, not off the clock. Not when they step on the stage should not be the only time they're paid for their time. They should be paid for all of their time that they're working, not just the time when they're dancing on the stage. So that is one news. More from France. Back in, I don't even know when, because there's so much news happening every day, but we talked about a French couple who was trying to sell an African mask for a lot of money. Of course, there was questions about where did they get this mask, and can they really sell it if they, and do they even have the ability to own it? Because it doesn't really belong to them, it belongs to the Nigel people of Africa. This is from Anka Ulea. The elderly French couple sold an extremely rare African mask for 150 million euros when it was, they sold it for 150 euros when it really was worth millions. A court ruled that their own carelessness was to blame. The French couple sold an extremely rare African mask for very cheap. They were retired and in their 80s and argued that there had been an authentication error and that the mask buyer, a small town secondhand dealer, knew how much the object was really worth when he bought it in 2021. But the court rejected their claims, saying the couple hadn't made any attempt to get the mask valued before selling it. Their negligence and carelessness characterized the inexcusable nature of their error. Therefore, their request to cancel the sale on this basis is dismissed, the judge said in their decision. The court also ruled that the antiques dealer, who is not an expert in African art, did not deceive them on the price and that the couple was not owed any money. As a proof of his honesty, the dealer had initially offered to pay the couple a value of 300,000 euros, the mask's starting point at auction. But the couple's children refused and chose to sue the dealer for the full amount instead. Ah, they got greedy! They should have just took the money they could get. Auctioneers described the object as extremely rare 19th century mask, belonging to a secret society of Fang people in Gabon, an ethnic Bantu group. Only about 10 such masks are believed to still exist. One auction told French media that this type of mask was even rarer than a Leonardo da Vinci painting. The couple, who are in their 80s and retired, sold the mask and other artifacts found in their second home in Gard region of southern France. Most of the items, including the mask, had belonged to an ancestor who was once a colonial governor in Africa, as in probably stolen. The lawyer said his clients were astounded by the court's rejection and are considering appealing the ruling. The court also rejected a second motion from Gabon's government to cancel the sale and return the mask to its country of origin. Shame on them! I think they should return that mask. Since you can't even trace how they got the mask, it's stolen by default, I would argue, for all of these kind of rare artifacts. If you can't find how they found it, it's stolen. Saying that there wasn't sufficient information on how the mask ended up in France. Exactly! If you don't know how it got there, it's probably stolen. At the outset of the, because if it wasn't stolen, there'd probably be paperwork, right? Because it was legally acquired. Yeah, he would write it down. He bought it from this, you know, warrior in Gabon, and then the Gabon guy, you know, made some money. No, that's not written anywhere. He just suddenly, I found this mask somewhere, random. Huh, wonder where it came from. They have filed a motion to achieve successive cancellation of the sales of this mask, its reparation, and its consignment of funds by Gabon. So hopefully Gabon is able to make sure that this mask isn't sold for any money and no one makes any money from it because it's probably stolen. And that's our update here on the famous Gabon mask from the Bantu tribe. Unless the original owner. Subsect of Bantu tribe. Keep watching now to see more interesting updates on this mask and if Gabon will ever get it back because it belongs to them. I'm on their side, okay?
That's a tough one. To this
day in history.
It's going to be tough finding the original owner because it's a mask.
I could identify him,
but he was wearing a mask when he sold it to me.
Yeah, all I want for it to happen to this mask is for it to be put in a museum in Gabon where it belongs. And nobody sells it to anybody. There's no money. That's all I want. Your story.
And of course, the old another bromide possession is 9/10 of the law, so it's a tough one. You know, I mean, legally you have an argument, but who's going to enforce it? So, and of course, the judge, it took him 3 minutes ago. Hey, you tried a settlement with these people, and they said no. Okay, well, they're screwed. I'm like, why would you turn down a $300,000 settlement when you were going to get bupkis? And that's what they got now.
Yeah, idiot. I mean, it was the children too.
It
wasn't even the couple; it was the children. So the children fucked it up. The
children greedy, like they weren't even the ones that sold it.
Exactly.
Greedy little. Really, the judge should just laughed at them and said, "Yeah, okay, morons. You turned down 300,000 euros. You know how much money that is? And you were getting nothing now. Just curious why you think that was a good plan." All right, this date history. 1841, French educator Ferdinand Edouard Weissem, who was awarded the Nobel Prize for Peace in 1927, was born. 1860, following Abraham Lincoln's election as U.S. President, South Carolina became the first U.S. state to secede from the Union. In 1946, on this day, Frank Capra's It's a Wonderful Life, a drama starring Jimmy Stewart, premiered and later became a holiday classic. 1960, the Vietnamese National Liberation Front was formed with the purpose of effecting the reunification of North and South Vietnam. In 1971, Pakistani President Aga Mohammed Yahya Khan transferred power to, oh boy, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. In 1974, Ethiopia was declared a socialist state under the leadership of Mengistu Ali Mariam. In 1989, the United States launched Operation Just Cause, a military invasion of Panama. Initial attack focusing primarily on the Panama City headquarters of leader Manuel Noriega. In 1996, which I was still in the military back then, and I was like, damn, I hope I don't have to go to Panama. 1996, the horror classic Scream, directed by Wes Craven, was released in American theaters. It became especially known for using the genre's cliches for comic effect. 2008, American director Robert Mulligan died at the age of 83. His credits include To Kill a Mockingbird. 2019, defendant J. Trump created Space Force, which, of course, again, the Republicans get elected saying they're going to make government small, and then get elected and create a whole entire new bureaucracy that we didn't need because we already had NASA. So we're celebrating that for some reason. More places for people to point their friends to jobs where they just sit at a desk and clear, you know, buy new drapes and waste taxpayers' money. Featured event, 1999, Macau made an administrative region of China. On this day, 1999, 12 years after agreement was reached between China and Portugal, several centuries of Portuguese rule ended in Macau when it became a special administrative region under Chinese sovereignty. I'm sure they're doing great now. Its feature biography is John Steinbeck, American novelist, who was born on February 27th, but died on this day, December 20th, 1968, age 66. Also dying on this day in music history, Bobby Darin. Died at the age of 37. I just should make a 37 list, not the 27 list. One of the first teen idols. He had a 1959 #1 hit with Dream Lover. Also, Splish Splash, I Was Taking a Bath, was a big hit for him. And, of course, the 1960s with Mac the Knife, as he turned into kind of a lounge singer, kind of a Frank Sinatra, if you will. And Frank even covered Mac the Knife, although he didn't do it as good as Bobby Darin. Darin traveled with Robert Kennedy and worked his 1968 presidential campaign. He was with Kennedy when he traveled to Los Angeles June 4th. And it was with Bobby Kennedy, when he was assassinated at the Ambassador Hotel. Bobby Darin died this day in 1973. Also, birthdays, Irene Dunn, American actress. Yeah, 50 years ago to the day. David Bohm, American physicist, born in 1917. Irene Dunn was born in 1898. I didn't say that, did I? Kim Young-sam, president of South Korea, born on this day, 1927. 1954 is the birthday of Sandra Cisneros, American author, and Billy Bragg, folk singer, British folk singer, writer, and musician, born in 1957. Happy birthday to Billy Bragg. And it's national days. It is International Human Solidarity Day. So if you know any humans that are solid, not liquid or gas, no, solidarity, that means we're all in this together. The struggle of workers against these oppressive, rich oligarchs who just want to run us into the ground and take our humanity from us. Anyway, it's also Mud Day, which celebrates the guy who set John Wilkes Booth's leg. I'm not sure why we celebrate that. National Sangria Day, which I mentioned, which is wine which you stuff all the fruit in and you just sit there and get pickled along with your wine, with your fruit. Huh?
You get blasted.
Get blasted, right. And it's also Go Caroling Day. So deck the halls. And that's it for today. National Day. December 20th, 2023 on Before Coffee as we head towards the winter solstice also today.
Nice.
Or tomorrow, but whatever. Yeah.
It will be the solstice
tomorrow
or somebody.
Probably even Friday. Yeah, we're close.
I'll
Earth's
be
gonna
there
start
before
tilting
you.
back.
Yeah.
Sometime in the next 24 to 48 hours, Earth is going to stop tilting one way and start tilting back the other way. That's what that is. You'll feel it. You'll feel it. You will. Believe me, you will.
Yeah. Instead of all the liquid in your nose going to your one ear, or go to the other ear. So we'll switch. So.
Yeah, we're going to slosh back the other way now.
All right. Well, this has been Allison here from the Netherlands. Tomorrow will be Thursday, which we haven't even given a theme. So themeless Thursday as we cover some more news. I hope you have a good one out there. See you on Thursday. Here is your mic drop moment.
Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons, and follow our other channels, Toxic Alley, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.